All right, this next tune I wrote about my father. I was born and raised in Freeport, Texas. Freeport, Texas is right on the coast, Gulf of Mexico, south of Houston, 60 miles due south. It's all chemical plants and refineries and levees. Shrimp boats. There's no more shrimp boats. There used to be shrimp boats when I was a kid, but no more. So growing up, my dad worked in all the chemical plants that surrounded us. I grew up in a neighborhood 200 yards from Dow Chemical USA. And this plant was 2 miles wide and 8 miles long. I was right on the edge of it. And at night, on my back window, it looked like Manhattan lit up, but it was just, chemical plant with a bunch of lights on it. And everybody in my neighborhood, all the kids I grew up with, their moms and dads worked in those chemical plants. That's what it was. Always an interesting color to the sunset. There's always a ring around the bathtub because the water was a little weird. Every once in a while, you'd hear a boom, and your windows would shake. Sometimes it was bad. Sometimes it was just a gas release. But it's weird what you can get used to, But my dad grew up. Well, I grew up with my dad working in those chemical plants, and he got out of high school, and he started working, sweeping floors and just helping out in a chemical plant. And he worked his way up. Got on the maintenance team, and then he worked his way up, head of maintenance. Then he got hired across the highway at a bigger chemical plant, head of maintenance over there. And then they hired him back over here, head of maintenance. And then they said, we're going to give you some training to clean up chemical spills and put out chemical fires, and I'm going to be a part of this elite disaster relief team. And so he did all this training. He'd go off and put out chemical fires and do everything. And a few months into this new job, he gets a call to Galveston, Texas, which is 45 minutes up the road from where I was born and raised. And in the port of Galveston, there was this barge, like a big flat ship with tanks stacked on it, 5 and 6 high. And most of these tanks, a lot of these tanks were leaking this very lethal chemical. And my father and his team, 4 guys in hazmat suits, were the first on the scene. And they go in full hazmat suits to every one of these tanks to check them. Some of these valves are faulty and they're leaking. And they're thinking about evacuating all of Galveston because this stuff is so bad. It never got to that. But a few hours into the job, my dad's on one of these tanks with 3 other guys, 2 guys here, 2 guys here. And they have to go up to every one of these valves on top of these tanks and take this safety cover off. It kind of screws off. You have to check these valves because some of them are faulty, and they're assessing all the situations. As they're pulling one of these safety covers off, the pressure builds, and it blows. And it doesn't go straight up. It kind of goes to the side towards my father and the guy standing beside him. And it knocks them back, knocks their hazmat suits off, and begins to spray them with this liquid chemical. The other 2 guys are fine. They just kind of got blown back and are okay. And they come around, and they get them down some ladders and across the street to the University of Texas Medical Branch, the John Seeley Burn Unit, one of the best burn units in the world. And they knew how to specifically treat chemical burns. And they begin treating him. And it's in the middle of the night, and my mom gets a phone call. And she wakes my sister and I up. My sister is 11, I'm 13. And she says, we have to go. Your dad's been hurt. And she doesn't say anything else. 45-minute drive, middle of the night to Galveston, Texas. And we get there. She grabs our hands as we're going into the doors. She says, we have to say goodbye. They don't think he's going to make it. And we go in, and maybe I put this away. I can't remember how he looked, but I knew I could not recognize him. And he was unconscious. And it was bad. And we said bye. And then she drove us 45 minutes back home. My grandmother was there. And then she turned back around and went to the hospital. And we waited. And we waited and we waited. And he's still alive. He's kind of in a coma. And he's come out. He's still alive. He's hurt. He's in ICU for a long time. He's still alive. A few weeks later, he gets his own room. A few weeks later, a couple months, he comes home. Against all odds, he comes home. And he obviously can never work in those chemical plants he's been working in his whole life. To be able to have a middle-class job and a family. And things get different. And he makes it, and he has a long struggle. About 8 years he's on steroids for his lungs because it got into his lungs and ruined his lung capacity. We moved away. There was a small settlement. We moved away where there's no chemical plants. Northeast Texas, piney woods. And my father was in his 50s, and I was thinking about this whole thing and how it had affected my life, and I wrote a song about it. And my father is now 65 years old, so I had to change the lyric on the third verse because he's still alive. And it's cool. Of course. I wrote this tune in 2010, and my band Uncle Lucius recorded it and put it on an album that we released in 2012. We did this on our first ever real record label out of Nashville. Signed a bad deal. It's okay. We needed it at the time, honestly. And it got us to another place. And they said, here's a little bit of money. Not a lot. Make a video for it. And we found people we knew in Austin who knew how to do this thing. And I told them the story, and they made a video. And it's crazy. It's crazy. Uncle Lucius was a band for 13 years. And in 2018, we were like, look, man, we're getting older, sleeping on the couches, sleeping in the van. It's getting harder. It was a good run, and we stepped away. 2 years later, I get all these texts and Facebook messages of congratulations. Man, this is so cool. You were on Yellowstone. And I said, I've never been to Yellowstone. And there's like, my friend said, no, man, it's a show on television, and your song, Keep the Wolves Away, was on Yellowstone. I said, hey, how about that? And I looked it up, and I didn't have Paramount. And I looked it up, but I found out that it was the #1 most watched television show in the United States at that moment. First thing I thought is, shouldn't I get paid for that? So, let me just show you. And I will do it different this time. Back then, we needed it. We were a young band, and they provided their own lawyer, and he smooth-talked us, and he said, oh, that's kind of the same thing. We signed a bad deal, but it got us to where we needed to be, so I don't regret it. I let it go. But we signed a bad deal. They own, on these songs, 50% of the publishing for a while. Okay? Not all of it. 50%. So what that means is Yellowstone reached out to the old record label and said, we'd like to use this song. Can we use it? And they said yes. And they never told us. And they didn't have to until we inquired with a lawyer. So I have this amazing lawyer I love so much. She's amazing and young and a go-getter. And I asked her to inquire, and she inquired. Turns out we should have gotten paid for that. And after a year and 2 months of back and forth, Uncle Lucius got their back pay on that. Okay? Then we said, what about this video? At that time, it was about 70 million views. I was like, should we get paid for that too? She said, yes. I'm going to inquire separately about that too. And she did, and we got our back pay for that. And now every quarter, our money's right. They still own half of the publishing, but it's okay because this thing has taken off, and it's crazy. Okay, 2 years after the band is done, this song hits like that. And then the video just kept doing its own thing, going and going. It's got over 105 million views now, something crazy. And it's a true story. My parents are in the last scene if you ever see the video on YouTube. So it's real. And this is the craziest thing. 2.5 years after Uncle Lucius is done, we're like, okay, this won't happen anymore. The song went gold, okay? So I had to order gold records for everybody in the band. And we had a steak party where we met and hung out again for the first time in like 3 years and ate steaks and drank. And we said, we're going to order these gold records. And the bass player said, look, we should order these gold records, but we should also order an extra one for your parents. And we did. 6 weeks later, they all came to my house, and I went to deliver every one of them. And I went by my parents' house. I said, look, I got the drummer's gold record. Do you want to check it out? It's all covered in paper, and I put it on their kitchen counter, and they put their readers on, and I took the paper off, and they looked down, and you should have seen their faces when they saw their name on it. They were like, "What, are you kidding me?" So my parents have a gold record hanging on the wall, because this is a true story. This song is the truest story. Took my first breath where the muddy Brazos spills into the Gulf of Mexico, where the skyline's colored by chemical plants that put bread on the table of the working man, where the working man does his best to provide safety and shelter for kids and a wife, giving a little of his soul every day, making overtime to keep the wolves away. Well, I was barely 13 when the company man tried to dig my daddy's grave. It happened on a French-owned tanker ship spilling poison into Galveston Bay. Well, the liquid fire filled his lungs and his eyes silenced any mortal cries. Cold in the grip of death's stinging pain, he fought like hell to keep the wolves away. For the next few years, Dad was sick as a dog, but he made a recovery just despite the odds. The settlement came and we moved out of town where the sky isn't heavy with refinery clouds. Yeah, he's still alive, he's doing good, he's in his 60s, but the money's running out and he's pinching for pennies. So I'm going for broke with every song I play, 'cause now it's my turn to keep the wolves away. If it had to be anyone, I guess I'm glad it's this one, man, because it's a true story. But think about what I want my kids to learn. It's about, taking care of your own. Something real cool happened just very recently, and these things take a long time, going the back and forth and everything, but we'll make an announcement soon because I have to order new records, and one for everybody in the band and one for my parents. This song just went platinum. Some crazy shit. Thank you very much.